The sight of Isaac Henry's erect penis sends Iris, the Tzenkethi geneticist, reeling backward. Her bioluminescent scales flare in a pattern of shock and confusion. By the ancestral fields, that appendage, it's not decorative? Isaac, flushed with embarrassment and arousal, fumbles to cover himself. I thought you understood human anatomy, he sputters, reaching for his discarded pants. Iris's multifaceted eyes widen. I assumed it was a non-functional evolutionary remnant, like your appendix, she admits, her translator struggling to convey her bewilderment. This moment of cultural misunderstanding threatens to derail years of careful diplomacy between Earth and Tzenketh. Isaac, a renowned xenobiologist, arrived on the bioluminescent humanoids' homeworld to study their unique reproductive biology. Now, in the sterile confines of a Tzenkethi research facility, he faces an unexpected challenge. The exam room's harsh light reflects off Iris's scaled skin as she regains her composure. Fascinating, she murmurs, her scientific curiosity overriding her initial shock. So humans use physical contact for reproduction? How primitive. Isaac bristles at her words but forces himself to remain calm. He's here to bridge gaps in understanding, not widen them. Our methods may seem unusual to you, but they've served us well for millennia. A commotion outside the exam room draws their attention. The door slides open, revealing a stern-faced Tzenkethi official. The High Council demands an explanation, he announces, his scales pulsing with barely contained anger. Isaac's heart sinks. Word of the incident has spread quickly, and he realizes the gravity of the situation. The joint research project, years in the making, hangs by a thread. As Isaac struggles to find the right words, his communicator chirps urgently. A message from Earth flashes across the screen. Unknown virus spreading. Global pandemic imminent. Tzenkethi biology may hold the key. Complete your mission at all costs. The stakes have never been higher. Isaac must navigate cultural sensitivities, prove the value of human biology to the skeptical Tzenkethi, and unlock the secrets of their reproduction, all while grappling with his growing attraction to Iris. Outside the research facility, a crowd gathers. Anti-human sentiment, fueled by a radical Tzenkethi group, threatens to boil over. Chants of primitive outsiders echo through the bioluminescent streets of Tzenkora. Isaac takes a deep breath, steeling himself for the challenges ahead. He turns to Iris, whose scales now pulse with a pattern he recognizes as curiosity mixed with concern. We need to work together, he says firmly. The fate of both our species may depend on it. Iris nods, her initial disgust giving way to determination. Agreed, but first you must address the High Council. They fear your reproductive methods may contaminate our society. As they hurry through the facility's winding corridors, Isaac's mind races. How can he convince the Tzenkethi that human biology is not a threat but a potential lifeline? And how will he handle his own conflicted feelings towards Iris? The answers lie ahead, in a collision of cultures, biology, and unexpected attraction that will shape the future of both Earth and Tzenketh. Isaac's words hung in the air as he and Iris rushed through the facility's corridors. The gravity of the situation deeply affected on both of them, but there was no time to dwell on the cultural misunderstanding that had occurred moments ago. As they approached the High Council chambers, Isaac's communicator chirped again. He glanced at the screen, his face paling as he read the new message. Iris, he said, his voice tight with urgency, we need to intensify our research efforts. Earth is facing a global pandemic, and your people's biology might hold the key to stopping it. Iris's scales flickered with a pattern that Isaac had come to recognize as concern mixed with tenacity. I understand, she replied, her multifaceted eyes fixed on him. But first, we must convince the High Council to continue our collaboration. The doors to the council chambers slid open, revealing a semicircle of stern-faced Tzenkethi officials. Their bioluminescent scales pulsed with various shades of disapproval and skepticism. Isaac took a deep breath and stepped forward, acutely aware of the delicate diplomatic tightrope he now walked. Esteemed members of the High Council, Isaac began, his voice steady despite his racing heart, I come before you to address the incident that occurred earlier and to share critical information that affects both our peoples. Over the next hour, Isaac explained the situation on Earth, the potential link between Tsenkethi biology and a cure for the human virus, and the urgent need for continued cooperation. He chose his words carefully, emphasizing the scientific importance of their work while addressing the Council's concerns about human biology. As Isaac spoke, he noticed the Council members' bioluminescent patterns shifting, indicating a range of emotions from surprise to curiosity. When he finished, there was a tense moment of silence before the head counselor spoke. "We have reservations about your biological practices," the counselor said, scales flickering with unease. "However, we cannot ignore the potential benefits of this research. You may continue your work, but under strict supervision." Relief washed over Isaac, but he knew this was only the first hurdle. As he and Iris left the council chambers, they immediately set to work establishing a joint laboratory in the Tsenkethi capital. Days blurred into weeks as Isaac and Iris threw themselves into their research. They worked tirelessly, combining human and Tsenkethi technologies in ways never before attempted. Isaac marveled at the sophisticated bioelectric equipment that Tsenkethi used, while Iris became fascinated by the adaptability of human medical techniques. Their breakthrough came during a late-night study session. Iris was explaining the intricacies of Tsenkethi reproduction when Isaac had a sudden realization. "The bioelectric signals," he murmured, eyes wide with excitement. "They're not just for communication, are they? They trigger physiological changes in both partners." Iris's scales lit up with a pattern Isaac now recognized as excitement. "Yes, the exchange allows for genetic material to be combined, forming new life. But how does this relate to your virus?" Isaac's mind raced with possibilities. "If we can understand this process at a molecular level, we might be able to adapt it to fight the virus. The bioelectric signals could potentially stimulate human cells to produce antibodies or even modify the virus itself." Their newfound direction required more intimate study of Tsenkethi mating rituals. Isaac found himself observing couples during their most private moments, recording data on bioelectric emissions and physiological changes. The situation was undeniably awkward, especially given the cultural misunderstanding that had started their journey. To gather more precise data, Isaac developed a portable sensor device to measure and record the bioelectric emissions. However, during a crucial experiment with a Tsenkethi couple, the device malfunctioned spectacularly. A surge of energy filled the room, washing over Isaac and Iris, who stood nearby. Isaac felt a jolt course through his body, unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He turned to Iris and saw her scales flickering in a rapid, intense pattern he'd never seen before. For a moment, Isaac felt as if he could sense Iris's thoughts and emotions. The connection was electric, intimate, and profound. As quickly as it had come, the sensation faded, leaving both of them breathless and confused. What just happened?" Isaac asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Iris's scales continued to pulse erratically. "I'm not sure," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. "But I felt connected to you, in a way I've never experienced before." The implications of this unexpected event were staggering. Had they accidentally replicated a part of the Tsenkethi mating process? And what did it mean for their research and their relationship? Before they could discuss it further, the lab doors slid open. Dr. Korzak, a senior Tsenkethi scientist known for his opposition to the human-Tsenkethi collaboration, stood in the doorway. His scales flashed with unmistakable anger and disgust. "What is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his eyes darting between Isaac, Iris, and the confused Tsenkethi couple. Isaac opened his mouth to explain, but Dr. Korzak cut him off. "The High Council will hear of this immediately. Your presence here is a corruption of our society, human. This collaboration ends now." As Dr. Korzak stormed out, Isaac and Iris exchanged worried glances. They had made significant progress, but now everything was at risk. And beneath the professional concern, a new, unspoken tension simmered between them. Outside the facility, the chants of protesters grew louder. The anti-human sentiment was spreading, fueled by rumors of the incident. Isaac's communicator chirped once more, displaying another urgent message from Earth. The virus was mutating, spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. Time was running out, and Isaac faced an impossible choice. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, but pursuing the research could shatter the fragile peace between humans and Senkethi. As he looked at Iris, her scales now pulsing with a pattern he couldn't quite decipher, Isaac knew that his next decision would change everything. Isaac's mind raced as he processed the gravity of the situation. The virus on Earth was mutating faster than anticipated, and time was running out. He turned to Iris, her scales now pulsing with a pattern that reflected his own sense of urgency. "We need to act now," Isaac said, his voice low and determined. "The data we've gathered so far isn't enough. We have to proceed with the experiment." Iris's multifaceted eyes widened. "You mean—" Isaac nodded. "A full replication of the Senkethi mating process. It's risky, but it might be our only chance to understand the bioelectric signals at a deeper level." Without wasting another moment, they set to work. Isaac and Iris quickly converted a small, isolated section of the laboratory into a secure testing area. They worked in silence, the weight of their decision hanging heavy in the air. As Isaac calibrated his modified bioelectric sensor device, Iris secured the room's privacy settings. The door sealed with a soft hiss, cutting them off from the rest of the facility. "Are you ready?" Iris asked, her scales flickering with a mix of anticipation and nervousness. Isaac took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." They began the experiment, carefully documenting each step. Isaac's sensors hummed softly as they recorded the subtle changes in Iris's bioluminescent patterns. As they progressed, something unexpected happened. Isaac felt a tingling sensation across his skin. He glanced down and gasped. Faint, bluish patterns were appearing on his body, mimicking the bioluminescent signals of Iris's scales. "Iris, look!" he exclaimed. Her eyes widened in astonishment. "Impossible! Your body is producing bioelectric fields." The discovery energized them both. They pressed on, their bodies moving in a synchronized dance of light and energy. Isaac marveled at the sensations coursing through him, unlike anything he had ever experienced. Suddenly, an alarm blared through the facility, shattering their focus. Isaac and Iris sprang apart, their experiment abruptly halted. "What's happening?" Isaac asked, hastily disconnecting himself from the monitoring equipment. Iris's scales flashed with alarm. "Security breach! Someone's infiltrated the facility." They scrambled to hide their research data, acutely aware of the sensitive nature of their experiment. As they finished, the door to their lab slid open with a violent hiss. Dr. Korzak stood in the doorway, his scales pulsing with unmistakable rage. Behind him, Senkethi security forces filled the corridor. "Arrest him!" Dr. Korzak shouted, pointing at Isaac. "This human has violated our most sacred laws." Isaac's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. He looked to Iris, seeing the conflict in her eyes. In that moment, Iris made her choice. She grabbed Isaac's hand and pulled him towards a hidden panel in the wall. "This way!" she hissed. They slipped into a narrow maintenance tunnel just as the security forces burst into the lab. The sound of angry shouts faded as they hurried through the dimly lit passage. "Where are we going?" Isaac whispered. "To someone who can help us," Iris replied, her scales pulsing with persistence. They emerged from the tunnel into a small, cluttered laboratory. A group of young Senkethi scientists looked up in surprise. One of them, her scales shimmering with curiosity, stepped forward. "Iris, what's going on?" "Lyra, we need your help," Iris said urgently. "Isaac's research is vital for both our species, but Dr. Korzak is trying to shut it down." Lyra's eyes darted between Iris and Isaac. After a moment of hesitation, she nodded. "We've been following your work. We believe in what you're doing. Come with us." The group led Isaac and Iris through a series of back corridors and hidden passages. As they moved, Isaac could hear the commotion spreading through the facility. News of the human corruption was spreading like wildfire. They finally emerged from the building, slipping into the bioluminescent streets of Tsenkora. The city was in uproar, with crowds gathering and shouting slogans, both for and against human Senkethi cooperation. Lyra guided them to a nondescript vehicle. "Get in. We have a safe place where you can continue your work." As they sped through the city, Isaac clutched his portable device, knowing it contained the partial data from their interrupted experiment. He caught Iris's eye, seeing his own mix of fear and tenacity reflected in her multifaceted gaze. The vehicle wound its way out of the city, eventually stopping at a hidden laboratory on the outskirts of Tsenkora. As they entered the facility, Isaac knew they were now fugitives. But with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance, he had no choice but to press on. Inside the hidden lab, Lyra and her team quickly set up equipment for Isaac and Iris. "We'll do everything we can to help you complete your research," Lyra said. "But you must hurry. It won't be long before they track us down." Isaac nodded, his mind already racing with the next steps of their experiment. He turned to Iris, whose scales now pulsed with a pattern he recognized as purpose. Together, they prepared to dive back into their work, knowing that every second counted in their race against time. Time and the virus's relentless spread. As the first rays of dawn painted the alien sky, Isaac and Iris found themselves in the hidden laboratory on Tsenkora's outskirts. Lyra and her team of young Tsenkethi scientists bustled around them, setting up equipment with practiced efficiency. "Let's see what we've got," Isaac said, connecting his portable device to the lab's main computer. The partial data from their interrupted experiment flickered to life on the holographic display. Iris leaned in, her scales pulsing with curiosity. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a complex molecular structure. "The protein produced during our interaction, it's unlike anything I've seen before." Lyra joined them, her multifaceted eyes widening. "Fascinating. The molecular structure seems to be a hybrid of Tsenkethi and human proteins. This could be the key we've been looking for." Isaac's heart raced with excitement and apprehension. "We need more data to develop a cure. There's only one way to get it." Iris met his gaze, understanding passing between them. "We have to complete the experiment." With Lyra and her team monitoring, Isaac and Iris prepared to resume their replication of the Tsenkethi mating process. The air in the lab crackled with tension and anticipation. As they began, Isaac felt the now familiar tingling sensation across his skin. Faint blue patterns appeared, matching the rhythm of Iris's bioluminescent scales. Their bodies moved in sync, guided by an instinct neither fully understood. Lyra's voice cut through their focus. "The sensors are picking up an unprecedented level of bioelectric activity. Your fields are harmonizing." Isaac barely heard her. His world had narrowed to Iris, their connection deepening with each passing moment. He felt her emotions as if they were his own. Excitement, fear, and something deeper, more intense. A surge of energy pulsed through them both. Isaac gasped, overwhelmed by the sensation. For a brief, transcendent moment, he felt as if he and Iris were one being, their thoughts and feelings intertwined. As the energy subsided, Isaac stumbled, suddenly weak. He saw Iris sway, her scales dimming. They caught each other, sinking to the floor. "Are you all right?" Lyra asked, rushing to their side. Isaac nodded, too drained to speak. He looked at Iris, seeing his own exhaustion mirrored in her eyes. "We did it," Iris whispered, her voice hoarse. Lyra's team sprang into action, collecting samples and analyzing data. Hours passed in a blur of activity as Isaac and Iris recovered their strength. Finally, Lyra approached them, her scales pulsing with excitement. "The protein you produced shows remarkable ability to neutralize the simulated human virus in our tests. We may have the basis for a cure." Relief washed over Isaac, but it was short-lived. Lyra's expression grew serious. "However, we need more advanced equipment to synthesize and refine the cure. Equipment we can only find in the main Tsenkethi research facility." Isaac's communicator chirped, displaying an encrypted message from Earth. His stomach dropped as he read the contents. "The virus has reached critical levels. They're implementing quarantine measures in major cities. We're running out of time." Iris placed a comforting hand on his arm, her scales flickering with concern. "What do we do now?" Isaac looked around the room, taking in the determined faces of their Tsenkethi allies. "We need to get into that research facility, whatever it takes." Lyra nodded, her scales pulsing with approval. "I have an idea. Zix's anti-human movement has been gaining strength. If we leak information about a fake human Tsenkethi peace conference, it should draw them away from the facility." "It's risky," Iris said, her scales flickering with uncertainty. "If we're caught—" "We don't have a choice," Isaac replied, meeting her gaze. Earth is counting on us. As they began preparing for the infiltration, Isaac noticed Iris growing distant, her scales pulsing with conflicted patterns. He approached her quietly. "What's wrong?" Iris turned to him, her multifaceted eyes filled with turmoil. "I'm torn, Isaac. What we're doing could save countless lives, but it goes against everything I've been taught. My people, my traditions." Isaac took her hand, feeling the now familiar tingle of their bioelectric fields connecting. "I understand, but sometimes we have to look beyond our own people, our own traditions, to do what's right for everyone." Iris was silent for a long moment, her scales shifting through a complex array of patterns. Finally, she nodded. "You're right. I'm with you, Isaac. Whatever happens." As night fell over Tsenkra, Isaac, Iris, and a small team of Lyra's most trusted associates gathered at the lab's entrance. They carried the synthesized protein and research data, each acutely aware of the weight of their mission. Lyra approached, her scales dimmed to near invisibility. "The false information has been leaked. Zix's followers are gathering across the city. It's time." Isaac took a deep breath, looking at each member of their small band. No words were needed. They all understood the stakes. With a nod, Isaac led the way into the shadowy streets of Tsenkora. They moved silently, their bioluminescent patterns muted, blending into the darkness. In the distance, they could hear the growing clamor of protesters, unwittingly providing the diversion they needed. As they approached the imposing silhouette of the main research facility, Isaac felt a mix of fear and commitment coursing through him. He glanced at Iris, seeing his own emotions reflected in her eyes. They paused at the edge of the facility's grounds, hidden in the shadows of an alien structure. Isaac surveyed the area, noting the placement of guards and security measures. This was it, the moment that could change everything. With a silent signal, Isaac led his team forward. They slipped past the first line of defense, using the Tsenkethi's own bioluminescent signals to confuse the security systems. As they approached the main entrance, Isaac's heart pounded in his chest. He knew that beyond these doors lay their best hope for saving humanity, and the greatest risk of upending the fragile peace between their species. Isaac took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. With a nod to Iris and the others, he reached for the door, ready to step into the unknown and face whatever challenges awaited them inside. As Isaac reached for the door, a faint vibration beneath his feet made him pause. He glanced at Iris, whose scales flickered with concern. The vibration grew stronger, accompanied by a low hum that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "They've upgraded the security systems," Lyra whispered, her scales pulsing with alarm. "We need to move quickly." Isaac nodded, his heart racing as he pushed open the door. The team slipped inside, finding themselves in a dimly lit corridor. The air felt heavy with tension, and the distant sound of voices echoed from somewhere deeper within the facility. Lyra took the lead, guiding them through a maze of hallways with practiced ease. Her knowledge of the facility's layout proved invaluable as they navigated around patrol routes and avoided security checkpoints. As they approached the main laboratory, Isaac felt a growing sense of unease. The corridors were too empty, the silence too complete. He caught Iris's eye, seeing his own apprehension mirrored in her multifaceted gaze. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, shattering the eerie calm. Red lights flashed, bathing the corridor in an ominous glow. "They know we're here," Isaac said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to hurry." They sprinted the final distance to the lab, bursting through the doors just as the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from a nearby corridor. Lyra and her team quickly secured the entrance, while Isaac and Iris made their way to the central workstation. The laboratory was a marvel of alien technology, filled with equipment Isaac could only dream of back on Earth. He and Iris worked in tandem, their movements synchronized as they began the delicate process of synthesizing the hybrid protein. Time seemed to blur as they focused on their task. The protein's complex molecular structure appeared on holographic displays, slowly taking shape as they fine-tuned the synthesis process. Just as they neared completion, Iris let out a gasp. Isaac looked up to see her scales pulsing erratically, emitting a brilliant light that filled the lab. "Iris!" he called out, reaching for her. The sudden surge in her bioluminescent patterns sent a shockwave through the delicate equipment. Alarms blared as the synthesis process began to destabilize. Acting on pure instinct, Isaac concentrated, feeling the strange tingling sensation of his newly developed bioelectric field. He focused on the protein synthesis, willing it to stabilize. To his amazement, a faint blue glow emanated from his skin, intermingling with Iris's bioluminescence. The alarms fell silent as the synthesis process not only stabilized, but accelerated. "Isaac," Iris said, her voice filled with wonder, "look at the molecular structure." On the display, the protein had changed, its structure more complex and stable than their original design. Somehow, their combined bioelectric fields had enhanced the cure's potency. Before they could fully process what had happened, the lab doors burst open. Dr. Korzak stormed in, flanked by a squad of Tsenkethi security forces. "Arrest them all!" Dr. Korzak shouted, his scales pulsing with rage. Chaos erupted in the lab. Lyra and her team created a barrier, buying Isaac and Iris precious seconds. Isaac lunged for the synthesized cure, securing a sample in a portable containment unit. "Iris, we have to go," he called out, reaching for her. But in the confusion, they were separated. Isaac found himself pushed towards an emergency exit by one of Lyra's team members. The last thing he saw before the door sealed behind him was Iris being surrounded by security forces, her scales pulsing with a pattern he recognized as both fear and grit. Heart pounding, Isaac found himself in a narrow alley behind the facility. The alien city stretched out before him, its bioluminescent streets now seeming more threatening than beautiful. He clutched the container holding the cure, acutely aware that he carried the last hope for humanity's survival. The sound of alarms and shouting grew louder. Isaac knew he couldn't stay put. With no clear plan and no allies in sight, he plunged into the alien night, his mind racing. He had to find a way to contact Earth, to deliver the cure before it was too late. But how could he do that alone on an alien world, with the entire Tsenkethi security force hunting him? As he ran through the shadowy streets of Tsenkra, Isaac's thoughts turned to Iris and the others. He hoped they were safe, but he couldn't afford to dwell on their fate. The weight of his mission pressed down on him, urging him forward into the unknown. The bioluminescent patterns of the city shifted around him, creating a disorienting kaleidoscope of light and shadow. Isaac realized he had no idea where he was going, but he knew he couldn't stop. Somewhere in this vast alien metropolis, he had to find a way to save his species, and perhaps in doing so, bridge the gap between humans and Tsenkethi once and for all. With restored dedication, Isaac pressed on, disappearing into the labyrinthine streets of Tsenkora. The city pulsed with an energy he was only beginning to understand, holding both danger and hope in its alien embrace. Landscape. The alien world that had once seemed so beautiful now loomed ominous and threatening. Isaac's heart raced as he ducked into a narrow alleyway, pressing his back against the cool, bioluminescent wall. He took a moment to catch his breath, his palms sweating from the events that had transpired. The weight of the containment unit pressed against his chest, a constant reminder of the precious cargo he carried. As he stood there, gathering his thoughts, Isaac noticed a faint tingling sensation spreading across his skin. Glancing down, he was startled to see a weak blue glow emanating from his hands. The bioelectric field he had developed during his work with Iris was manifesting, pulsing gently in the darkness. Isaac stared at his hands in wonder, flexing his fingers and watching the subtle play of light. A distant shout jolted him back to reality. He couldn't afford to linger. With new hope, Isaac pushed off from the wall and began to move, letting instinct guide him through the unfamiliar city. As he navigated the labyrinthine streets of Tsenkora, Isaac found himself drawn to the outskirts of the city. The towering structures gave way to smaller dwellings, and soon he found himself at the edge of a vast alien wilderness. The landscape before him was unlike anything he had ever seen on Earth. Bioluminescent plants dotted the terrain, casting an eerie glow across the rugged ground. Strange, twisted trees reached toward the sky, their branches swaying in a breeze he couldn't feel. Isaac hesitated at the threshold between civilization and wilderness. He knew that venturing into this unknown territory was dangerous, but staying in the city meant certain capture. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward into the alien ecosystem. As he moved deeper into the wilderness, Isaac became acutely aware of the challenges that lay ahead. The air felt thicker here, filled with unfamiliar scents that made his head spin. The ground beneath his feet was treacherous, with hidden pockets of soft soil that threatened to swallow his feet with each step. Suddenly, a rustling sound to his left made Isaac freeze. He turned slowly, his eyes widening as he saw a large, predatory creature emerge from behind a glowing bush. The beast was unlike anything he had ever seen, a six-legged monstrosity with gleaming scales and razor-sharp teeth. Isaac's heart pounded in his chest as the creature locked eyes with him. He took a step back, ready to run, when he felt the now familiar tingle of his bioelectric field intensify. To his amazement, the creature hesitated, its head tilting in apparent confusion. Acting on instinct, Isaac focused on the sensation, willing his bioelectric field to grow stronger. The blue glow around his body intensified, and the predator took a step back, its scales rippling with what seemed like uncertainty. After a tense moment, the creature turned and loped away, disappearing into the alien foliage. Isaac let out a shaky breath, realizing that his newfound ability had just saved his life. As he continued his journey, Isaac found that his bioelectric field was becoming increasingly useful. He discovered that he could sense the electrical impulses of the dangerous flora and fauna around him, allowing him to navigate the treacherous landscape with greater ease. However, this new ability came with a price. As his bioelectric field grew stronger, Isaac realized that it was making him more detectable to Tsenkethi technology. He could sense the distant hum of search drones and security devices, forcing him to take longer, more circuitous routes to avoid detection. Days passed as Isaac trekked through the harsh wilderness. His supplies dwindled, and fatigue began to set in. The alien sun beat down mercilessly, and strange, toxic plants released spores that made his eyes water and his throat burn. Just as despair threatened to overwhelm him, Isaac crested a hill and saw a sight that made his heart leap. A small group of Tsenkethi, their scales dimmed to blend with the environment. They moved with purpose, clearly familiar with the terrain. Isaac approached cautiously, his hand raised in a gesture of peace. As he drew closer, he recognized one of the Tsenkethi as a member of Lyra's team from the research facility. "Isaac?" the Tsenkethi called out, his scales flickering with surprise. "We've been searching for you." Relief washed over Isaac as he realized these were allies, Tsenkethi outcasts who had chosen to help him. They quickly surrounded him, offering water and a strange, nutrient-rich paste that soothed his parched throat. As they began to move again, the lead Tsenkethi explained their mission. "We're heading for a hidden communication array," he said, his scales pulsing with urgency. "It's our best chance to transmit the cure's formula to Earth." Isaac nodded, grateful for their help, but acutely aware of the challenges that still lay ahead. As they journeyed deeper into the wilderness, he couldn't help but wonder about Iris and the others left behind in the city. He pushed the thought from his mind, focusing instead on the treacherous path before him and the vital mission that drove him forward. The small band of outcasts and their human charge pressed on, their figures soon swallowed by the alien landscape. The cure for humanity's salvation was one step closer to its destination, but the road ahead remained fraught with danger and uncertainty. The alien wilderness stretched endlessly before them as Isaac and his Tsenkethi allies pushed forward, their goal tantalizing, close yet fraught with danger. The hidden communication array loomed in the distance, a beacon of hope in the harsh landscape. As they approached the array, a sudden commotion erupted behind them. The sound of hover vehicles and shouting voices filled the air. Isaac's heart sank as he realized they had been discovered. "We've been tracked," the lead Tsenkethi outcast hissed, his scales flashing with alarm. "Quickly, to the array!" They sprinted the final distance, Isaac's legs burning with exertion. The communication array stood before them, a towering structure of alien technology. Without hesitation, Isaac placed his hand on the interface panel, feeling the familiar tingle of his bioelectric field connecting with the Tsenkethi tech. As he began the process of transmitting the cure's formula, the pursuing forces closed in. Dr. Korzak's voice boomed through a megaphone, ordering them to stand down. Isaac's Tsenkethi allies formed a protective circle around him, buying precious seconds. The interface hummed with energy as Isaac focused all his concentration on the task at hand. His bioelectric field pulsed strongly, the blue glow intensifying as he pushed his newfound abilities to their limit. Suddenly, a searing pain shot through his body. The strain of interfacing directly with the alien technology was taking its toll. Isaac gritted his teeth, refusing to let go until the transmission was complete. Just as the last of the data streamed through the array, Isaac's vision blurred. He felt himself falling, the world spinning around him. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Dr. Korzak's face, a mix of anger and concern etched across his alien features. Isaac drifted in and out of awareness, catching snippets of conversation and flashes of his surroundings. He was vaguely aware of being transported, the hum of a vehicle beneath him. Time seemed to stretch and contract, leaving him disoriented and confused. When he finally regained full consciousness, Isaac found himself in a sterile medical facility. The room pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent glow that he recognized as distinctly Tzenkethi. He tried to sit up but found his limbs weak and unresponsive. A gentle hand pressed him back onto the bed. "Easy, Isaac," a familiar voice said. "You've been through quite an ordeal." Isaac blinked, his vision clearing to reveal Dr. Korzak standing beside him. The Tzenkethi scientist's scales pulsed with a pattern that Isaac had come to recognize as concern. "The cure?" Isaac croaked, his throat dry. Did we succeed?" Dr. Korzak's scales shifted to a brighter hue. "Yes, Isaac. The formula was successfully transmitted to Earth. Initial reports indicate promising results." Relief washed over Isaac, but it was quickly replaced by a new worry. "The others? Iris, are they safe?" "They're fine," Dr. Korzak assured him. "Iris is eager to see you, but we need to stabilize your condition first." As if on cue, a team of Tzenkethi doctors entered the room. They moved efficiently around Isaac, checking monitors and adjusting equipment. One of them held up a device that emitted a soft humming sound, running it along the length of Isaac's body. "Fascinating," the doctor murmured, his scales flickering with excitement. "The genetic adaptations are progressing rapidly. His bioelectric field is becoming more stable by the hour." Dr. Korzak leaned in, his eyes gleaming with scientific curiosity. "Isaac, your encounter with our technology has triggered some remarkable changes in your physiology. You've developed the ability to generate weak, Tzenkethi-like bioelectric fields. It's unprecedented." Isaac tried to process this information, but his mind felt foggy. He closed his eyes, suddenly overwhelmed by fatigue. "Rest now," Dr. Korzak said softly. "There will be time for questions later." As Isaac drifted off to sleep, he could hear the excited chatter of the Tzenkethi doctors. Even in his exhausted state, he sensed that something momentous had occurred, something that would change the course of human-Tzenkethi relations forever. Days passed in a blur of medical examinations and recuperation. Isaac's strength gradually returned, and with it came a growing awareness of the changes in his body. He could feel the subtle hum of his bioelectric field, a constant reminder of his unique status. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Isaac was deemed stable enough for visitors. His heart raced as the door to his room slid open, revealing Iris. Her scales pulsed with a kaleidoscope of colors that spoke volumes about her emotional state. "Isaac," she breathed, rushing to his bedside. "I was so worried." As she drew near, Isaac felt his bioelectric field respond, synchronizing with hers in a way that left him breathless. The Tzenkethi medical staff, observing from a distance, murmured in excitement, their scales flickering with scarcely controlled enthusiasm. "Iris," Isaac said, reaching out to take her hand. The moment their skin made contact, a visible spark of energy danced between them. "What's happening to us?" Before Iris could respond, the door opened again. High Counselor Zara entered, her presence immediately commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Her scales shimmered with a pattern that Isaac had come to associate with authority and purpose. "Isaac, Iris," she said, her voice firm but not unkind. "Your unique bond has presented us with an unprecedented opportunity. The Council has been debating the future of human-Tzenkethi relations, and I believe you two may hold the key to a new era of cooperation." Isaac and Iris exchanged glances, the weight of Zara's words settling over them. As the High Counselor began to outline her proposal, Isaac realized that their personal journey had become inexorably intertwined with the fate of two species. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since this ordeal began, Isaac felt a glimmer of hope for a future where humans and Tzenkethi could stand together as allies. Allies. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time since this ordeal began, Isaac felt a glimmer of hope for a future where humans and Tzenkethi could stand together as partners in the vast expanse of space. In the weeks that followed, Isaac's recovery progressed rapidly. His unique physiology, now enhanced by the Tzenkethi-like bioelectric field, allowed him to heal at an unprecedented rate. As he regained his strength, Isaac found himself thrust into a whirlwind of scientific research and diplomatic negotiations. Iris remained by his side throughout, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Together, they spearheaded a groundbreaking research project that combined human and Tzenkethi medical technologies. Their work focused on developing a device that could manipulate bioelectric fields to accelerate healing and boost immune responses in both species. As the date of the historic Human-Tzenkethi Summit approached, the atmosphere on Sencora buzzed with anticipation. Isaac and Iris worked tirelessly, refining their invention and preparing for their presentation to the gathered delegates. The day of the summit arrived, and Isaac found himself standing in a large conference hall aboard a neutral space station orbiting a nearby gas giant. The room was filled with a mix of human and Tzenkethi dignitaries, scientists, and media representatives. The air crackled with energy, both from the excitement of the gathered crowd and the subtle interplay of Tzenkethi bioelectric fields. High Counselor Zara took the stage alongside the human ambassador. Their contrasting forms a striking visual representation of the two species coming together. As they began their opening remarks, Isaac felt a surge of pride at how far they had come. Suddenly, a commotion erupted near the back of the hall. Isaac watched as a human aide rushed forward, her face pale with urgency. She whispered something to the ambassador, whose expression immediately darkened. The ambassador stepped forward, his voice grave as he addressed the gathered delegates. "We've just received word from Earth. A new, more aggressive strain of the virus has emerged in several major cities. It appears to be resistant to the original cure." A ripple of shock and dismay spread through the crowd. Isaac felt Iris's hand tighten around his, her scales pulsing with concern. The human delegation erupted into heated discussions, with some calling for an immediate return to Earth to address the crisis. As chaos threatened to derail the summit, Isaac's mind raced. He locked eyes with Iris, and in that moment, they both knew what they had to do. "Wait!" Isaac called out, his voice cutting through the din. All eyes turned to him as he stepped forward, Iris at his side. "We have a proposal." Isaac took a deep breath, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. "Our research has led to the development of an experimental medical device that combines human and Tzenkethi technologies. We believe it has the potential to create an enhanced cure that could neutralize this new strain." Iris continued, her scales flickering with tenacity. "We propose using the device on ourselves. By combining our unique physiologies, we may be able to synthesize a cure powerful enough to end this crisis once and for all." A hush fell over the room as the implications of their proposal sank in. High Counselor Zara stepped forward, her scales pulsing with a complex pattern of emotions. "What you're suggesting is incredibly risky. Are you certain this is the only way?" Isaac nodded solemnly. "We believe it's our best chance to save countless lives and cement the alliance between our species. We're willing to take that risk." An intense debate erupted among the human and Tzenkethi leadership. Isaac and Iris stood firm, answering questions and addressing concerns. Finally, after what felt like hours, a consensus was reached. The human ambassador approached them, his expression a mix of admiration and concern. "We've agreed to your proposal. The procedure will be broadcast live to both worlds as a symbol of trust and cooperation." As preparations began, Isaac felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. He looked at Iris, drawing strength from her presence. "Are you ready for this?" he asked softly. Iris's scales shimmered with affection and persistence. With you by my side, I'm ready for anything. They were led to a makeshift medical bay where their experimental device had been hastily set up. As they were connected to the machine, Isaac could feel the familiar tingle of his bioelectric field intensifying. He reached out and took Iris's hand, their fields intertwining in a dazzling display of light and energy visible to all the Tsenkethi present. The procedure began, and Isaac felt a rush of sensations unlike anything he had ever experienced. His consciousness seemed to expand, merging with Iris's in a profound and unexpected way. Their minds linked, allowing them to combine their knowledge and intuition with breathtaking speed. In this shared mental space, they worked together, rapidly synthesizing a new cure within their joined physiologies. Isaac could feel the strain on his body, but he pushed through, driven by the urgency of their mission. As the process reached its peak, Isaac's vision filled with a blinding light. He felt a surge of energy coursing through his body, and then darkness. When Isaac regained consciousness, he found himself lying on a medical bed, surrounded by a team of human and Tsenkethi doctors. His body felt different, humming with a new kind of energy. He turned his head to see Iris beside him, her scales shifting in a pattern he now instinctively understood as relief. "Did it work?" Isaac asked, his voice hoarse. A human doctor stepped forward, her eyes shining with excitement. "The procedure was a success. The new cure appears to be even more potent than we hoped. It's already being synthesized and distributed to Earth." Isaac let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He reached out to Iris, feeling the familiar spark as their hands touched. But something was different. His bioelectric field felt stronger, more stable. And Iris... "Your bioluminescence," Isaac gasped. Iris's scales were no longer glowing, giving her an almost human-like appearance. Iris nodded, her expression a mix of wonder and confusion. "It seems we've both been changed by this experience, but I can still feel my bioelectric field, and yours, it's stronger than ever." As they marveled at their transformations, High Counselor Zara entered the room, her scales pulsing with a pattern Isaac now recognized as pride and gratitude. "You've done it," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Your actions today have not only saved countless lives, but have opened the door to a new era of cooperation between our species." Isaac and Iris sat up, still holding hands, as Zara continued. "The summit is concluding with the signing of the Tsenkora Earth Accord. We would be honored if you would join us for the ceremony." As they prepared to leave the medical bay, Isaac caught his reflection in a nearby screen. His eyes widened as he saw the soft, Tsenkethi-like glow emanating from his skin. He turned to Iris, who was examining her now non-luminescent scales with fascination. "Look at us," Isaac said with a mixture of awe and amusement. "We've become living symbols of human Tsenkethi unity." Iris's lips curved into a smile, a gesture she had picked up from her time with humans. "Indeed we have, and our journey is a long way to go." Hand in hand, they stepped out of the medical bay, ready to face the new future they had helped create. As they walked towards the conference hall, Isaac couldn't help but wonder what other surprises awaited them in this new era of interspecies cooperation.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.